How's it going, guys? My name is Jason and this is Learn, Build, Repeat. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I built this beautiful white oak jewelry box step by step using the fanciest hardware I could find. So let's get to it. I started off by ordering these jewelry inserts from Amazon and measuring them in order to find the inside dimensions of my box. I next bought some white oak stock from Fine Lumber here in Austin. I knew that I would be planing all the boards down to a 1/2 inch, so I started by cutting some stock and doing a glue up for the bottom panel first, as I could just run this through the planer. Next, I cut the side pieces on my crosscut sled. I built this sled in a previous video, link down below if you want to check that build out. I left everything a little bit longer because I know that sometimes when you're planing, it can snipe a little bit, and so by leaving it a little bit too long, you can cut that off later. With the boards cut and the previous panel glued up, I pulled out my 100-pound planer and put it on my bench. Then I ran the boards through the planer one by one, starting with the bottom panel to clean up the glue that had squeezed out. And as you can see here, it does a pretty good job. This process took me about an hour until I got everything down to a 1/2 inch. Now it was time to cut those boards down to the correct length. This had to be pretty precise because if it was off just a little bit, either the jewelry inserts wouldn't fit or they'd be too loose. So using the measurements I had taken previously, I set up my crosscut sled with the stop set to 1 inch longer than I needed to account for the thickness of the boards, and then just ran them through. Now for the 45-degree miters, I decided to use these router bits that would leave a groove in the miter. This enables the pieces to lock together. That helps tremendously while doing the glue up. You can see the bit here and the groove that they make. With all the side pieces finished, I did a test fit here. I used a hammer to tap everything into place and then clamped everything together. This would give me the exact size for the bottom panel that I needed to cut, which I did by just setting the box on the bottom panel and then using a mechanical pencil to mark out the edges. I then took this to the crosscut sled and made many small cuts to get it exactly to the right size. And next it was time to glue up the box. I took the pieces apart and sanded everything up to 220 before final assembly. I then put a little bead of glue in the groove of those miters that I showed you before and around the edges where the bottom panel would sit. I then assembled everything for the final time and put a whole bunch of clamps on it. If I were to do this again, I actually would have used 2 more clamps in the center as the locking part didn't quite seat as good as I had hoped. Okay, I just took the box of the clamps and I realized I made it just a little bit too small. So these were gonna be my jewelry inserts, and when I push it in there, it fits, but it is super, super tight, such that if I push it all the way, there's no way I'm getting it out. And so I was originally planning to have 2 of them stacked on top of each other so you could take it out, have a little more storage, sorry. But if it's this tight, you're not gonna be able to get them out once they're pushed in there. So I think what I'll do is I'm just gonna actually have the 1 layer and make everything a little bit thinner. It looks a little more elegant, but yeah, not as much storage space, but whatever, let's keep going. With that mistake out of the way, I just cut the box down to size on my table saw and moved on to the lid. So to make the lid, I was planning on using a piece of Lexan with an oak border that I could then place on top of the jewelry box. This would be a really clean look and let people see the jewelry inside the box. I started off by cutting these oak strips that would then become the frame, and then using my crosscut sled with a 45-degree template to cut the miters. I then cut the Lexan sheet down to the right size and cut a groove in the border. One thing I want to note here is I actually took the protective plastic off this Lexan sheet and it completely scratched up and I had to go get a new one. So if you're doing this, don't do what I just did. Now it was time to finish the lid. I put masking tape on the back side of the borders so that I could flip everything over and have it hold together. I decided to use epoxy for this glue up and not wood glue because I wanted to glue the Lexan to the border as well so it would be nice and sturdy. Next comes my least favorite part about any project, and that is sanding and finishing. I sand the entire box up to 220 and then I spray it with polyurethane. Polyurethane is my go-to finish because it doesn't yellow the wood and provides a ton of protection. I just got the hardware for the box. It took about a week to come in. It's Brusso hardware, which is supposedly the top of the line hardware. Everything in this bag, which is a tiny bag, cost me $100 including shipping. So I've got little feet. I got little feet for the box. I
have these hinges, and just looking at how thick they are, they look like they're really high quality hinges. These were like 30 bucks. And I have a little, cabinet pull for it so I can open the box without having to touch the box. So we're gonna install this next, and then we're gonna do a big reveal.
Installing the hardware was a little tricky because I had to mortise in the feet and the hinges. I made little templates out of plywood to do this, and this took me a ton of time because there was a lot of trial and error to get it just right. I really took my time with this one because I did not want to mess up my box. And then for the cabinet pole, I just drilled a really small hole and used a bit of epoxy to secure it in place. As the last step, I attached the lid to the base and it was completely done.
That's all for this video. If you guys like this content, please remember to like and subscribe. I'll be moving into a new shop in the next coming months, so I'll be detailing my entire shop setup with all my new tools and new projects. Stay tuned.